managed by you as a program manager. One is about budget related things, but budget related things not alone by you will be done. So budget related things you will be connecting with project management team and you will be doing it, right? That is one thing. Second, not only budget, the thing is second is the technical risk. Technical related issues, whatever the technical related things and all, everything were included. So that technical risk and all, everything comes under the second part. After the technical risk, the next is operational risk. Operational risk means what is the operational procedure, standards, all these things in reference to the operations and as well as the functionality of application comes under operational risk. The next one we call it is regulatory risk, means whatever the standards, policies and procedures do we require to follow, all these things comes under regulatory risk. So these are the different types of risk which has to be managed by you being a program manager when you are handling the responsibility as a program manager in any of the application development. Is it clear, Hasan? Now did you understand the second responsibility?
Yeah.
Third responsibility is to run the program. Third responsibility is to run the program. Run the program means running an application by understanding the deployment procedure. Because if you want to run the program or if you want to run the application, what is that you require? You require a code, right? You require coding. Coding will be written by the development team, right? So developers will write the code, wherein testing team will verify and validate whether the code was right or not. Everything will be done by them. Now, if you want to run the program, what is that you require end of the day? What is that you need finally? You need to understand the deployment procedure. Am I right or not? You need to understand the deployment procedure. Means if you want to deploy an application, so there are some deployment procedures which has to be maintained here. Will you agree or not? Understood? Hasan? Understood?
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to run a program, what is that you require? It's not only coding. Coding is not sufficient to run the program. What is that you require? You require a deployment procedure. Deployment procedure steps has to be known to you well in advance. Unless until if you don't know about the deployment procedure, developing a solution wouldn't be a difficult task. So deployment procedure steps by understanding the DLL files, right? How this database connectivities has been connecting to the application, what kind of servers we have used to connect these databases, all that. So what are all comes under this JDBC drivers, thin drivers, type 1 driver, type 2 driver, all these things, these driver connectivities, all these things should be known to us well in advance. This is what comes under running of a program is all about. Clear, Hassan? Now did you understand what I am saying?
Yeah.
Understood or not? Right? This is all comes under running a program. So if you are a program manager, the very first thing what is that you have to do is that you need to evaluate the portfolio. Second, you need to manage the risk. Third, you need to run the program. Followed by this, you need to engage the stakeholders. Now you tell me, how are you going to engage the stakeholders? What is the way of doing engagement? How do you, why? First of all, first question, who are stakeholders? First question. Second, why stakeholder engagement is required and how do we engage stakeholders? So let us discuss about these 3 points first. Okay, first point. First question to you is, who are stakeholders? Who are stakeholders? First question. Who are stakeholders?
Like the investors or the senior managers,
Only investors and senior managers? Only those people?
the customers.
Stakeholder. Customer means end user. You're talking about end user, right?
Yeah.
Customer means end user. Okay. Next, anyone?
Regulations. a policy.
No, I'm asking you who are stakeholders.
Yeah,
List
so
list the name of stakeholders. I'm asking you.
like investors, stockholders,
Okay.
and then senior managers or management, CEOs,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and then
Technical team members. Technical team
technical team
members.
members, subject matter experts, or
Architects.
architects.
Right? So
Yeah.
all these people were concerned as stakeholders. Agree, right? But these stakeholders usually of two different types. One is internal stakeholders and second is external stakeholders. Now you tell me who are internal stakeholders and who are external stakeholders. How you are going to differentiate these two? How you are going to differentiate between internal and external stakeholders? How is it different from internal to external? How is it different from internal to external stakeholders?
Internal or internal to the organization,
Internal stakeholders. Who are internal stakeholders and who are external stakeholders? Because
like
you have
inter
named some people now,
yeah.
right? In this, how you are going to categorize stakeholders? Who are internal stakeholders and who are external stakeholders? How you are going to categorize them? Internal
See,
stakeholders means people who are involving in the project. Internal stakeholders means who are involving in the project directly. Those people we call it as internal stakeholders. Second, external stakeholders. External stakeholders doesn't mean people who are indirectly involving in the project. For example, there will be some external team like business owner, right? Stakeholders, shareholders, all these people are comes under external stakeholders. Means they are supporting your project from outside, not from inside. But there are some people who are supporting you from inside. Those people we call it as internal stakeholders. Did you understand this? Yes or no?
yeah.
Right or not? So this is what generally we call it as stakeholders stands for, right? So there are two type of stakeholders. Now, next question to you. Why do you require to manage stakeholders? Why knowing about stakeholders is important? Why do you require to manage stakeholders? Why?
Because you're trying to manage their expectations
Mm,
or
okay.
the deliverables.
Deliverables. Okay. Okay. So you need to consider stakeholders. That's what you're saying, right? Henceforth, we need to consider stakeholders. Is that you're saying, right or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, great. Now you tell me, if that was the case, the number of stakeholders will be more than 20, 30 people. Because if you consider that, if you start considering stakeholders to manage the deliverables, all that, by combining both external and internal, it may go up to somewhere around 20, more than sometimes 20 people also. So, is it practically possible for you to manage all these throughout the project? Because through a project is not for one day. So, project may be continued for next maybe for next 6 months or 1 year and so. Right. So, do you feel really possible to manage 20, 30 or 40 people throughout the project? Is it practically possible for you? By combining
No.
both external and internal stakeholders, then what should we do now?
Probably create a document
What kind
with
of document is that?
stakeholder management strategy.
No,
Um,
before stakeholder management strategy, what is that you have to do? First, you
Identify
have
the
to identify the stakeholders,
right.
right? Identification of stakeholders is what you have to do. Once you have done the stakeholder identification, the next analysis management comes into picture. Understood? Clear? Right or not? Right? Now,
Right.
if you want to identify the stakeholders, how do you identify that? How do you identify stakeholders? How do we identify stakeholders?
Um, by looking at the project,
No. What is the
not,
technique do you follow? Because these techniques are important.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
This is where we call it as power and interest grid. This is what we call it as power and interest grid. I'm texting on the chat box. If you want, you can write down power and interest grid.
Do you have these details in the slides?
I'm texting on the chat box. I'm just texting on the chat box. Do you want me to present that even? Hello?
I mean,
I've texted on the chat box.
so
Did you
like
see that?
everything that we're talking about, managing risk and engagement, are they also on the slides in the following pages?
Those are the generalized discussion points, and those won't be there in the slide. Everything won't be there in the slide. Slides will
Okay.
have a limited information. So when you are trying to understand, there will be a lot of information will be discussed. Each and every minute point won't be there in the slide because there is some practical example I'm giving. How can I give that for you as a slide? It is not possible, right? For example, I have given an example of a manufacturing customer CMM level. How can one expect that I can give you as a slide? Is it possible? Is it possible for me to give? Do you think it is possible?
Yeah, I mean, you have the talking points. Seems to be like at least five types of risks. Um,
Yeah.
and
That's
then
what I've told you. Now, five type of risk I have told you. What is
yeah,
first one? Budget risk. Second, technical, operational, and regulatory. Right? Because moreover, one more point. Please do note: this class will be under recording. Session will be under recording.
oh,
Hence, you
right,
don't
right,
not be worried. I
right.
understood your worry, but class will be under recording, and there will be some screenshots will also be there, so that you can follow those. Okay? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Now, go ahead. Coming to the point. Now, how do you identify the stakeholders? This is the question. So, if you want to identify the stakeholders, this is how stakeholder identification will be done by us. So, usually there are two different things we use. This is where we call it as power and interest grid. What was that? Power and interest grid is what we will be using. Now, when you talk about power and interest grid, this power and interest grid again will be categorized and will be differentiating based on four categories. Please make a note. Please make a note. Power and interest grid. Please write down it. Few points, not all the points.
Okay.
Power and interest grid will be categorized into 4 points. This is all comes under stakeholder identification. Please remember. Okay. This is all comes under stakeholder identification. Under stakeholder, how you are going to identify stakeholders is what I'm explaining you. So power and interest grid is what we use. So that categorized into 4 points. High power, high interested people. High power, high interested people. Second, high power, low interested people. Second, high power, low interested people. Third, low power, high interested people. Low power, high interested people. Four, low power, low interested people. Did you have you read? Done? Right? High power, high interested people. High power, low interested people. Low power, high interested people. Low power, low interested people. Again, I'm repeating you: high power, low interest. Low power, high interest. High power, low power, high power, low interest. Low power, high interest. High power, low power, high interest. Low power, low interest.
Yeah.
Right? So this is how usually the categorization has been made. Now you tell me who are comes under high power, high interested category. So before that, I'm asking you one question. why I have taken power and interest into account. When you want to identify stakeholders, why I have taken power and interest into account? Why? Why was it? Why I have taken that? Why I have taken power and interest into account?
Because
Power leads
interest
to
is authority.
power leads to authority or decision making.
Yeah.
Right? Power leads to authority or decision making. Excellent. Next, interest leads to interest leads to
Engagement.
involvement.
Yeah.
Interest leads to involvement. Right or not? Understood? Clear, Hassan? Right? So why we have taken stakeholder identification? Because power and interest, power leads to decision making, whereas interest leads to involvement. People, whoever is capable to provide you the decision, at the same time whoever is involving in the project, based on these two categories we are identifying the stakeholders. That's the reason why we have taken power and interest grade into an account. Did you understand, Hassan? No? Yes or no? Right? So if you want to identify the stakeholders, what is that you have to do? High power, high interest, high power, low interest, low power, high interest, low power, low interest. This is how generally the categorization of stakeholder has to be done. Now, when you talk about high power, high interest, who are comes under high power, high interested category? Who are comes under high power, high interested category? Because you have named some people, right? Stakeholders, you have named it, right? So business owner, technical owner, stakeholders, shareholders, all that. Now, who are comes under high power, high interested category? Business owner, project management team, business analyst, architect. These people are comes under high power, high interested category. Hence, manage these people closely throughout the project is possible. Understood, Hassan? Clear? Did you understand?
Yeah.
Right? So high power, high interested category people who business owner, at the same time project management team or project manager or a program manager, at the same time business analyst, followed by architect. Those people are high power, high interested category people. So manage these people closely is essentially important. This is the first point. Okay. Second point, high power, low interest, that I'm going to discuss tomorrow. Right. So what is high power, high interest, low interest? Who are comes under high power, low interested? So that I'm going to discuss you in tomorrow session. Clear to you, Hassan? Did you understand?
Yeah.
Understood, right? What I'm saying.
Yes.
Right. So high power, high interested we have discussed. High power, low interest, low power, high interest, low power, low interest. So this we are going to discuss about tomorrow. This is what we comes under stakeholder identification. Once stakeholder identification done, the next stakeholder analysis and management we do. So for that there is a different matrix which normally we follow, that we are going to discuss here in tomorrow session onwards.